Hi, quick warning, this story might be potentially triggering. Missing children isn't something anyone ever wants to think about. It's horrific. It's the one thing in life that every parent fears. It's the one thing to happen which unites communities and sets the hearts of millions of strangers beating. It's the story guaranteed to get headlines. What happens when a baby disappears? Just vanishes. Welcome to Extraordinary Stories Podcast. Hey, how are you? Are you well? Are you good? I am. Okay, before we start with this story, I must apologise. I must apologise that I put up, if you follow me on social media, I usually, with each new episode, I'll post the title of the episode and a couple of images and just sort of, spread the word that a new episode is out. Anyway, the last story that I did was the horrific, brutal disappearance and murder of Brenda Schaffer. Now, when I was putting stuff up on Facebook, first of all, and then Instagram and then Twitter, people started getting in contact with me and saying, Barry, I don't think you've actually put up a photo of that woman who that happened to. I think you've put up a photograph of the singer Rebecca Schaffer from years ago. I had completely not noticed because I was putting up lots and lots of images. Yeah, I'd put up some bloody singer who's still very much alive and making music, and I'd attached her to this story of a woman who came to a terrible, horrific end. So my apologies, and thank you if you were one of the people who came to me to point that out. Alright, first of all, I just want to say as well, I am doing some promo for Extraordinary Stories Podcast at the moment, and it's in the form of a little clip that is being played on lots of other podcasts. It's also shareable. You can go onto my Facebook page, which is not the Extraordinary Stories one, but if you go to Baz Henderson, you can find it there. You can share it. It's on everywhere. So basically just, tell your friends. Get your mates listening. Get your pals listening. Get your granny listening. Okay, I'll do some shout outs and then we're going to get on with part one of these two stories that I'm going to tell. Okay, hello to Bonnie Loden. I think it's Loden was how you would say it, Loden. Hello Bonnie, you've joined the Facebook party, nice to see you there. Hello Kylie Rodriguez. Excellent name there, Kylie Rodriguez, hello to you. Hello Hannah in Chicago, who sent me a lovely email that, she was listening to the podcast in her car, driving around Chicago, shouting out loud, and she was loving the fact that the same things I was shouting about in the podcast is the same things that she was shouting about, so we're in tune. Hello to, now these are listeners who've listened for a long time, and I can't believe I've not done a hello before, so hello Aaron McCardle, and hello Rosie Roger Davies, who are in Kent in the UK. They listen to ESP while they are in bed at night, falling asleep. So hello, Aaron and Rosie. Thanks for listening. And lastly, Hannah Gabriel. Hannah recently chose to support Extraordinary Stories Podcast through Patreon, and for that I am so grateful. Thank you, Hannah. Okay, on with the story. So you're getting two, not one story, and that's because they link together. And truth be told, I actually started with the second story and I kept being linked back to the first. And then I thought, right, okay, I'll just go back and I'll just look at the first story. And then I looked at it and I was like, okay, I'm telling both of these stories. Are you ready? Okay, let's go. Missing children is not a story that it's ever a pleasure to cover. Of course it's not. It's just horrific, I think, to think about the fact that parents go through 9 months of pregnancy, and in some cases just the actual even trying to get pregnant is hard enough. And then, to have that child ripped out of their world with no warning must just be so devastating. And that's exactly what happened to Joy White and Carl Tyson in 1987. So Joy and Carl, they were a young, unmarried couple, very, very much in love, living in Harlem, New York. New York. That's my New York accent. It's quite good, isn't it? Oh no, that's what I'm doing now. New York, they lived in Harlem. No, shut up. Anyway, so they lived in Harlem. And Joy had given birth to a beautiful baby girl, and they had named her Carlina. Her full name, Carlina White. And so they just adored their baby girl. They adored her. Now, one evening, Carlina was only 19 days old. My God, can you imagine? So tiny, so small. And she was with Mum Joy and Dad Carol. They were in their Harlem apartment, and Carlina was restless. She was screaming. She had a high temperature, and her parents, they rushed her to the Harlem Hospital Centre. Now, of course you would. I don't think you should take any chances when it comes to an ill baby. So, as I said, she was only 19 days old. Now, during her birth, the birth had been quite long, quite tricky, and whatever position it was that the baby had gotten into when she was, when Joy was giving birth, Carlina had swallowed a little tiny amount of fluid, and doctors thought this might be giving her an infection, and that's probably what this was. This is probably why she had a temperature and why she wasn't sleeping and she was upset. Doctors said to her, it's nothing life-threatening. It's just an IV drip for the baby and some medication. I'm saying that as if that's like really normal. Nah, just an IV drip, some medication. You'd be going out your mind. Do you know what I mean? 19-day-old baby, fever, temperature, yeah, you'd be worried. If I had a 19-day-old baby, I'd be the worst human being in the world. I'd be in the hospital going, fix my child now. Stop whatever you're in the middle of, doctors. I don't care if that woman is dying and needs open heart surgery. Fix my baby. I don't care if the man's leg's falling off. Can't you see my baby's more important? No, I'm genuinely, that's what I would be like. Don't even think I'm exaggerating there. I'm not a big fan of, and please don't take this personally if you are one of these people, but like a lot of people will do their dog is their baby, etc. I don't really tend to go in for that sort of stuff, so I'm not judging, dogs as babies. That's but if that's the choice that you make in your life, I'm not judging you on it. Anyway, why I'm saying this is because, just to give you an example of how sort of crazy I can go sometimes. This was about 2 years ago. I was on a night out after work. I'd had like a really, really crazy busy day at work, and I'd gone out for a few drinks after it. When I say a few drinks, I came home and I was absolutely steaming, leathered drunk. I was so drunk. So I come home, I'm totally smashed. I was starving. I was like really starving, and I thought, oh, I don't want any like bad food. I don't want any dirty food. I don't want chips. I don't want pizza. So when I got home, the only thing that I had in the house was a box of cereal, and it was a box of fruit and fibre. So I make this bowl of cereal, and I'm sitting in the living room. But halfway through the bowl, so I'm sitting on the couch, right? Halfway through the bowl of cereal, I just passed out with it on my knees, right? So I woke up about half an hour later, and Alfie, my dog, is eating the contents of the bowl of cereal off my knee, and I'm thinking, oh, cheeky bugger, waited till I was asleep to eat my cereal. And then I suddenly thought, shit, that cereal's got raisins in it. And raisins are so toxic for dogs. Raisins can kill a dog. And how do I know this? Because, like a good responsible dog owner, I've got a chart on my fridge and it tells you everything that's toxic for a dog. And raisins are in the red, danger section. They can have raisins can attack a dog's liver in a way that a dog can't recover from. So I wake up, I realise he's eating the raisins out of the cereal bowl, and in my absolutely drunk as fuck state, I phoned the 24-hour vet hospital. I'm completely incoherent, like my dog is eating raisins and I'm really drunk and I don't know what to do. And the lovely woman she's trying to help, she said, well, I'd say bring him in at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning and he can see a vet. To which I said, no, he needs to come in now. It's an emergency. She was like, well, Mr. Henderson, I really think 8 a.m. will be fine. And I was like, no, I'm bringing him now. She was like, oh, well, it's the problem is we're quite busy. We've only got one doctor on tonight. And I said, well, he's just going to have to make the time. He's just going to have to make the time to see him. So I wrap Alfie up in a blanket. It's 3 a.m. at this point, right? And I go to one of my neighbours who I don't even know. I mean, I knew this guy to look at. I'd never spoken to the guy. I turned up on his doorstep. Fuck, I'm so embarrassed when I think back. So I'm standing there, drunk, with Alfie wrapped in a blanket, and to this neighbour I don't even know, I'm like, hi, you need to drive me to the vet hospital. And he's like, what the fuck, mate? And I was like, look, there's been a raisin incident, and if I call a taxi, it's going to take forever. I need to get there now. So he actually goes, gets his car keys, this guy I don't know, in his pyjamas. And let me tell you, this neighbour, he doesn't live there anymore, but he was the meanest, scariest looking man you've ever seen. I'm talking like about 6 foot tall, completely tattooed face, muscles like bursting out of his shirt, kind of slightly drug dealer vibes. In that moment, I couldn't have cared a fuck. I would have taken a lift from anybody to the hospital. Anyway, long story short, get Alfie to the vet's hospital. Yeah, the raisins were having an effect. I was right. So they have to put him on a drip. They put him on a diet of coal, which flushes a dog's system out. And 3 days later, he was out of the hospital right as rain. And thank God he was okay. But let me put an end to this, long-winded, off-the-beaten-track story by saying, if you are going to get drunk and eat cereal with raisins in it, don't fall asleep with it near a dog, because those raisins might end up costing you £700 in emergency vet bills. Anyway, if you came to this podcast for stories about true crime and not raisins, I'm sorry. Let's continue. Joy and Carl are anxiously waiting in the hospital, and Carlina is in a ward being looked after by nurses. Now, they see a nurse who's kind of walking around the hospital grounds, and she comes and she sits with them in the waiting room. And she's really kindly. She's also from Harlem, and she comforts the parents as they sit and they wait for an update on Carlina's health. Now, she's really supportive and she asks lots of questions. She asks, how old is your baby? And where is it that you live? And what's brought you here tonight? Why have you had to rush her to the hospital in the middle of the night? And Joy and Carol are, they're talking to the nurse. They're just, they're telling her all this information. They're in a state of panic. And this nurse asks, and exactly what room is your baby in? Now, Joy and Carol, in their upset, they just tell her everything. Because that's what you do in those moments. A health professional asks you questions when you're in that moment of panic. You just tell them. Who was this nurse? Well, if you ask a member of staff at the Harlem Hospital Centre, they will say, no one really knows. She floats around the hospital, going ward to ward, talking to patients, talking to people in the waiting room. But no one really knows who she is. Did anyone ever report the mysterious nurse going around the hospital? No. Carlina White disappeared from her hospital bed at 2 a.m. in the morning as her parents sat in the waiting room. They were only alerted when a nurse came to ask them if Carlina had been moved for some reason. This really alarmed them. No, the baby hasn't been moved, they tell the nurse. And the nurse says, right now, there's no baby in Carlina's hospital bed. It's lying empty. So very quickly, this nurse is running around the hospital and she's trying to figure out, has this 19-day-old baby been moved somewhere else? Of course, for Joy and Carol, what they think's happening is they think actually something's gone wrong and that Carlina's had to be moved into some sort of emergency care and that they've not been informed. So panic and terror sweeps the hospital really quickly. A fucking baby is missing in this hospital. All that they can say is that a woman who was a nurse was the last person they spoke to, and she sat with them in the waiting room. And hospital staff get a really bad feeling because they know that there has been a woman going around who they don't really know who works in the hospital. So immediately police are called. I can't even imagine what Joy and Carl were going through at that moment. Police immediately do a search of the grounds, a search of the hospital, but they cannot find Carlina and they cannot find the woman. They look to CCTV footage and it shows the nurse, the one we're talking about, the one that no one knows, and she's leaving the hospital just after 2 a.m. at the time when Carlina goes missing. But in the CCTV footage, she isn't carrying a baby. But the face of the nurse is really clear. So really, really clear, and they have a face. So they have a face, but they're looking at this and they're going, this is weird because she's not carrying a baby. So what the hell? Then they zoom in, they look closer, and they realise that what she's actually wearing is a really big, bulky jacket. And she is moving incredibly slowly in the CCTV footage. And they work out that Carlina is under her jacket. Panic and mayhem sets in. There's now just police everywhere. The parents are in shock. They feel rage. They just want their baby back. Of course you would. You'd be going out of your fucking mind. So the search of the hospital grounds, it turns up nothing. They know now that baby's not on the grounds of the hospital. That baby is out of there. Now bear in mind, this is 1987. It's a time when the Google, the Facebook, the Twitter, it didn't exist. So really, the way that any action is created to try and locate the missing baby comes in the form of posters that get put up. Posters on phone booths, posters on lampposts. The newspapers are sent images of the 19-day-old baby and of the woman masquerading as a nurse. And the newspapers print these pictures, and Carlina's face is everywhere. She becomes known as this missing baby stolen from the Harlem Hospital Centre. Now, does any of that help? No. Carlina is gone. Anne Petway was a young woman who lived in the Harlem area. She had recently been abandoned by her boyfriend and so was completely alone. And in her life, I mean, this is just horrible. Anne had suffered 3 miscarriages. Anne wanted a baby. And well, now she had one. By posing as a nurse in a uniform that she'd found in a second-hand store. She walked around the hospital with authority and an air of, I belong here. And no one questioned it. That's what's so fucking frustrating. Nobody questioned it. Ugh. On one of the many times that she was just walking round, looking as if she worked there, she saw Joy and Carl in the waiting room and she took her chance. There was a baby lying in a bed and there was no staff around for just a minute. And Anne lifted baby Carlina, put her under her jacket, and off she went. Now days passed, and weeks passed. I can only imagine that Carlina's parents didn't sleep a wink in that entire time. They must have just been so on edge. I don't even know how you would cope with that. So the news, of course, picks up the story. Big headlines, baby goes missing from New York hospital. It was the very first ever reported case of this happening. Well, I should bloody well hope so. I should bloody well hope it was. Sadly, not the last time. But for people reading this and hearing this on the news, this was new. This was like, what the hell? A baby taken from a hospital? Police, they interviewed lots of people, but to no avail. Nobody knew who the woman posing as a nurse was. And police really are doing everything that they can to hunt down this woman, but no luck. They can't find her. Anne had lived in the Harlem area for many, many years, but now that she had Carlina, she moved 50 miles away from the Harlem area. So, a bit more about Anne. What's her story? Well, Anne, she was born and raised, as I said, in Harlem. She graduated high school and she worked various different jobs. So she did waitressing, she worked in several stores, and she kind of bounced around from job to job and a few different relationships. As I said, she'd suffered 3 miscarriages, and of course, I'm not on Anne's side here. Of course I'm not. Nobody is. But can you imagine what 3 miscarriages must do to you? My God. Mind fucked. So Carlina is 50 miles away from her parents and time begins to pass. The first thing Anne does is she changes Carlina's name. She calls her Nejdra. Nejdra. Catchy. Nejdra Nance becomes her name, but she shortens it to Nettie. So baby Nettie is getting older and older. Joy and Carl, they are refusing to accept that they've lost Carlina, but can anybody find her? No. There's no clues about where she is. Anne's walking round town 50 miles away with this baby in a pram, pretending this is her daughter. Oh. Anne eventually takes baby Nettie to Georgia, so the chances of her ever being found are becoming so slim. As if the story of the baby disappearing wasn't horrible enough, the pain of losing Carlina, it drives a massive hole in Joy and Carl's relationship. They just can't cope. And I think we all get that at some level. I think at some level we all understand that. Outside of their relationship, there is a campaign called Find Carlina happening. A task force from the police are doing their best, but no luck. What can the hospital do here? It's one of the questions I had. I was like, what can the hospital actually do in this moment? Well, the answer is not much. I mean, except financially. Carl and Joy, they sue the hospital. They have a lawsuit asking for $100 million. Wowzers. Oh my. It goes to court, and in the end, they don't receive that amount, but they do receive $750,000 in compensation. Which, you know, I mean, if you're looking at it financially, oh, that's a great result, but it's not their baby, and that's what they really want. Carl and Joy, they split up 2 years after the disappearance of their daughter because their entire world is just shattered. They can't cope. So what's happening in Georgia? Well, baby Carlina, now called Nettie, is growing into a toddler, then a young child, then a teenager. In the time that she's growing up, Anne actually has a baby. This is the 4th pregnancy, and it's the only one for Anne that hasn't ended, sadly. So now, Nettie, aged 15 bloody years have passed. She has a younger brother. If we step back just for a minute, this is the madness of this story. This 15-year-old girl, Nettie, has no idea that she is in fact a child called Carlina White from Harlem. She's just living in Georgia as who she thinks that she is. It blows my mind. I'd be like somebody chapping on your door and being like, "Excuse me, you know you've always thought you were Betty. Well, turns out you're Susan. Actually, sorry about that. I mean, just like a total, like, your whole life would it's just so strange." Now Nettie gets into her early 20s and she falls pregnant herself. So I'm saying, right, it's weird, it's strange. Nettie's actually Carlina. She doesn't know. Does that mean that she never had a strange feeling? She never had a sense of something? No, it doesn't. Here's the thing, Nettie had had a strange feeling which lived with her since her teenage years. Just a feeling something wasn't right. And she couldn't quite ever place what the feeling was. She just knew something wasn't quite right in her life. At age 16, she had asked her mum if she could show her birth certificate. And, well, of course, Anne couldn't, because she doesn't have it. And at first she tells Nettie, oh, it got lost years ago. Years ago it got lost. Okay. So when Nettie is an adult and is pregnant with her own child, she says to Anne, look, I'm going to need my birth certificate because I need to start registering for my own baby and lots of things require my birth certificate. I need to know details. Can Anne produce one? Well, we think no, because she couldn't before. But yes, Anne makes one appear. So Anne presents Nettie with a birth certificate. Nettie looks at it and she is not convinced. She thinks it looks fake. She says it's just something about it's not right. And she questions her mother, Anne. She says, well, I asked you for this at 16 and you told me it disappeared. Now all of a sudden you've made it appear. Why have I never seen it before? And why does it not look like any other birth certificate? Basically, what the fuck is going on? Anne holds strong. And, she tells Nettie to calm down. Calm down. You're getting yourself all in a sort of state over nothing. But Nettie doesn't calm down. She takes the birth certificate to a government building. And she says, look, can you tell me, is this real or is this not real? They look at it and they say, no, it's a fake. It's a fake birth certificate. So this is where Nettie goes down a really interesting road. She starts her own investigation. Now, this is 2005 and there has been the most marvellous invention. It's called Google. You might have heard of it. So Nettie's like, right, well, where to begin? Who knows? But she just starts to search. She starts to search for herself. So she's searching like Nettie. Nothing. Harlem. Anne. Baby. She's trying everything. She's going through all these websites. And you know what it's like when you're looking for something. Fuck me, you can be there for hours. Days you can be there trying to find the right thing. But she hits upon something which is about to shake up her whole entire world. She goes to a website called the National Centre for Missing and Exploited Children. And she begins to search. And as she does, she comes across an image of her mother, Anne. And she sees next to Anne's name these words: nurse in Harlem, possibly connected to the disappearance of Carlina White. Can you imagine? Oh my God, your own mother's face. So Nettie clicks the link. She goes into the story, and as she's reading it, she's thinking, this might be me. This could possibly be me. What's so great, but also, I mean, this is kind of creepy. On that website, they have pictures of Joy and Carl, and she's thinking, I look like them. I look like those two people on that website. I don't look anything like my mother. I look like these two people who said that their baby went missing. So what does she do? She confronts her mother, Anne, is what she does. She presents the evidence. She shows her the website. She tells her, I know this birth certificate is a fake. Anne breaks down in tears and confesses to the whole entire thing. She tells of the miscarriages, and she tries to explain it to Nettie. Nettie is having none of it. I mean, if I was Nettie in that moment, I would be bouncing Anne off the wall in a rage. So Nettie goes back to the website. She finds a phone number and she calls it. And she explains, I think I am Carlina White. And the response to this is fast. Within an hour, she is on the phone to Joy, her real mother. Can you imagine what Joy must have been feeling in that moment? I mean, well, both of them. Can you imagine what they must have been feeling? Joy cries and cries and cries down the phone. Here is, the voice of the child she thought she would never see again. Joy had just utterly given up hope that she'd ever see Carlina. Anne is arrested for kidnapping, and in court she tells the whole story of how she took the baby in the night, how she smuggled her under her jacket and left the hospital. She's sentenced to 12 years in prison. Good. I don't think really 12 years is enough, but 12 years is what it is. So Nettie, I mean, in a way, that can never really be the end of the story, because Nettie's now in a world where everything is turned on its head. She's got to establish a relationship with Joy and Carol, her real parents, and that's tough. Joy and Carl, bearing in mind they are separated, they're overwhelmed by the fact that she's back. And not only that, but how strange is this? They last saw her at 19 days old. And here she is. She is an adult with her own child, their grandchild. What must that be like? Insane. So yeah, the baby's back. But it's not all harmony and hugging like I'd love to think it was. It's not an episode of The Waltons or what's another family drama, I don't know. Some other cheesy drama. It's not. Carlina has a bit of anger in her. I mean, I think I get that. I think you would feel all sorts of emotions. But she's got anger at the fact that she spent her life being lied to. I mean, she can't really take that out on her biological parents, because of course it's not their fault. They've had years of grief. But all those emotions are meeting together. One of the things that comes up, it's just horrible that this actually makes its way into this story, but one of the things that comes up is the money. Because when Carlina does her research, she says to her parents, well, it's well documented that you got, $750,000 when I went missing. But where is the money? Well, the money's been spent. The money's been gone. Been gone? The money is gone. And Carlina wants to know why. Why was none of it ever saved for me in case I returned home? And that's hard for her parents, who have to explain, look, we have prayed and wanted you back every single day, but the truth is, it's been so many years have passed and we had to spend that money. Anyway, that all kind of resolves itself. It does take time, but eventually Carlina moves back in with Joy. Carl and Joy, they get back together. And so now you've got Carl and Joy, the parents. You've got Carlina, the returned daughter, and her baby. And they're all living together. And now this story makes national news. It's a really crazy story, so you can see why people would be interested. Carlina has decided she wants to go by the name of Nettie and not the birth name. And her parents understand why, because the name Carlina White gets used in the press. Carlina White, the baby who went missing over 20 years ago, returned. But Carlina feels like, you know what? I've only ever known myself as Nettie, and that's who I'm going to be. So imagine you were sitting at home and you're watching TV. You're watching late night news and you see this story. And imagine it made you think. What if the Carlina White story awoke in you the feeling that something wasn't right in your own life? What would you do about it if you thought that potentially you were a missing child? And so ends part 1 of the story. Okay, coming up soon, part 2 of The Baby Is Gone. I was totally going to try and go for like some sort of, what's her name from Serial? Sarah Koenig situation. I was like, on the next episode of The Baby Is Gone. And then I realised I'd actually probably need a great clip from episode 2. But the problem is I haven't started recording episode 2 yet. So that won't really work. Anyway, so ends part 1. Stay tuned for part 2. Oh no, hang on, that doesn't work either. Stay tuned sounds like it's on the TV, that shit. And so ends part 1 of the story. Oh, that also sounds pish. Right, just come back for part 2. Right, just come back in a minute, listen to part 2, where a guy's watching the telly and he sees the story and it changes his life. Done. Fuck me, that was hard work. Alright, before I go, thank you if you are one of the people who has left an iTunes review. Really appreciate them. The more iTunes reviews that I get, the more visible the podcast becomes, the more it helps me. Thank you. Thank you if you are one of the new Facebook group members. Come join the Facebook? What the hell's Facebook? Facebook party. Yeah, it's getting hot in here. It's getting crazy over at Facebook headquarters. It's good. It's really good. And your emails are beautiful. Keep sending them. They are beefy. They're exciting. They're interesting. I love it. And Patreon, if you're supporting through Patreon, thank you so much. You guys are amazing. Okay, part 2 coming up. Okay, goodbye.
It didn't affect me really one way or the other. I would imagine from the look on his face, let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over. Let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over.